But the conditions in the country are of such a confusing nature at the moment that stuff just comes in all the time. We've had authorities in Lexington, Kentucky, tell our affiliate there, WTVQ, just a short while ago, that a plane is missing from radar in their airspace, and it is simply going to take time in order to sort out whether or not we're looking or at an operation or somehow witnessing or being on the edges of an operation that is continuing to unfold in various parts of the country. We still indeed have a missing aircraft, or a missing or not accounted for aircraft from United Airlines. We had a crash near Pittsburgh here today, about which we have only that knowledge, no understanding whatsoever whether or not it is relevant to the others. We do know that the president and the vice president, and interestingly enough, former presidents, are all now in secure locations. That's Pierre Thomas, our Justice Department reporter, connecting into his sources there to tell us all that. ABC's John McKenzie, who's out on the streets of New York, has spoken to the New York City Fire Department officials, and they report many missing firemen, perhaps as many as 200. And John Miller, been such assistance here this morning that will come as no surprise to you, because you worked these streets for so long, both before you went back to being a reporter as an official with the government, and with the police department.
That's right.
And the fire department stays there. I've seen the fire department all my professional life stay there till the bitter end.
Well, you know, they are the people who are always running in when everybody else is running out, and in this case would have been the front line of the evacuating force for the World Trade Center. The fire department has a set plan for a disaster at the World Trade Center. It's an automatic second alarm, which brings more than 175 firefighters. This, of course, brought hundreds more, and their job is to go through the building and bring those people out. And there's really no telling at what stage of the evacuation they were at, or how many of them were still inside when the first building collapsed or the second building collapsed.
I remember 30 some odd years ago, first coming to New York, and there was a building that collapsed, and the firefighters were ultimately the ones to die on almost the very first night I was here at ABC all those years ago. As you say, everybody's going one way, and they're going the other way. John, I know that you're listening a lot to the network. By this I mean the police network, and one assumes we're not interrupting and intruding on them. I think that's pretty certain. Give us the general tenor of things at the moment.
Right now, it's a situation that's vastly calmed down. As you hear the operations, which I've been monitoring since the beginning, their voices are now level. This is much more about organizing an incredible crime scene second, but first, organizing a massive transport of casualties. They literally have passenger ferry boats, police launches, and other vessels standing by to ferry people away to outer boroughs, helicopters to do the same thing. It's really a tremendous effort to triage the people who are injured, to decide who's viable, who can be saved, who needs immediate attention, who can wait, to categorize them and tag them as such, and then to designate whether they can stand a long ride or just a short ride to the nearest available medical help. That's what's going on, and that's an incredibly large effort. On the other side, there's the investigation, which is unfolding, processing probably the largest crime scene in U.S. history, certainly larger than the Oklahoma City bombing, or even the first World Trade Center bombing, or in this case, because of the size of those two buildings, the twin embassy bombings in East Africa.
Yeah, and that's the Pentagon we're looking at this morning. And I'm sorry, but we have more bad news. Lisa Stark, who covers aviation from us, reports in from Seattle that 2 United flights have now crashed. Now, just so we don't lose track of the numbers, we told you the United Flight 93 going from New York to San Francisco crashed outside Pittsburgh today. We believe now, according to our aviation sources, the United Flight 175, which was a 767 destined to go from Boston to Los Angeles, has crashed, and we do not know where. So we have 4 major commercial aircraft which have been involved in either accidents or violence today. We have the 2 at the trade towers in New York City. We're not certain, but we believe both those are somehow connected to American Airlines, but we're not sure of that, absolutely sure. And that news conference in Dallas a few minutes ago didn't shed much light on the subject. And we have 2 United Airlines flights involved in crashes. We do not know the circumstances of those crashes. One of them flying from Newark, just outside New York, to San Francisco, and the other flying from Boston to Los Angeles. And we may or may not have another aircraft because we have no certainty yet what the aircraft was, who it belonged to, really what size it was, that penetrated the outer ring of the Pentagon this morning, right through to the inner ring of the Pentagon's courtyard there, and caused what ABC's Jack McQuethy called heavy casualties there. So we have 4 significant commercial aircraft carrying, in some cases, well more than 100 passengers who've all been involved in acts of violence on purpose or otherwise today. And Mayor Giuliani, the mayor of New York, who will probably get a better feel of this before anybody else at the moment, has now described a tremendous number of lives lost in the New York the attack on the New York trade towers, and it doesn't come as any great surprise to anybody. The mayor begins to give us some sense of magnitude which is beyond that which we are merely speculating and or talking about, even though we know that many, 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 many lives have been lost. And ABC's John McKenzie, who's just a couple of blocks away from the World Trade Center at a makeshift fire command center. Look at that again. I mean, it is stunning. John McQuethy at that makeshift fire command center has had a battalion commander tell him that as many as 200 firefighters are principally unaccounted for. So it is no wonder that all across the country today, at airports and at public sites, many, many which have been closed from the west all the way across to the east, people are holding their breath. Don't wish to be melodramatic about it, are holding their breath as to whether or not there is one more, or should I say, another incident to come. And that was because the shock was so profound watching on television as we did this morning to see the second aircraft come in and crash into the other of the twin trade towers. There it is, which have now both collapsed. And it is in some ways a reminder of what happened when the Challenger exploded, and the constant repetition of the explosion of the Challenger on Challenger space shuttle just drove it into our collective consciousness all across the nation. What we had witnessed together, though we're clearly unable to feel in the same way as those people in the immediate area. I just want to pick up some other reaction coming from around the country and around the world. It's very interesting, the reaction we've had immediately, officially, from the highest ranks of the Palestinian Authority and from Afghanistan. I think we can hear Chairman Arafat, Yasser Arafat, in just a moment, but the Taliban ambassador to Pakistan, it is in Afghanistan where the United States believes Osama bin Laden has been most carefully given sanctuary, if not protected by the Taliban. But the Taliban ambassador to Pakistan has condemned what he called terrorist attacks on the United States on Tuesday. He said in a dispatch from Reuters out of Islamabad in Pakistan, this is a terrorism act and we strongly condemn it. And then from Kabul itself, the capital of Afghanistan, a spokesman for the rulers there said that the Saudi dissident, Osama bin Laden is a Saudi Arabian citizen, could not be responsible for a spate of terror attacks in the United States. I don't understand that particularly, but here's the quote from him. It says, what happened in the United States was not a job of ordinary people. It could have been the work of governments. Osama bin Laden cannot do this work, neither us, said the Taliban spokesman to the Reuters news agency in Kandahar, which is a city in the southern part of Afghanistan. This could have been the act of either internal enemies of the United States or its major rivals. Now, there are a couple things. John Miller talked to me about this because you've been to Afghanistan. You went to see Osama bin Laden. In every organization, anywhere in the world where governments or organizations have been somehow connected to terrorism in the United States mind, real or not, people are just waiting. There's going to be some kind of response to this. When Osama bin Laden blew up those embassies, I guess it was before you went into Afghanistan, they attacked his camps. They didn't get him.
They sent 75 cruise missiles at $1 million apiece into his camps based on intelligence that he would be meeting there with his leadership.
Right.
He was not there, and they didn't get him. They destroyed his camps. I think that at the time or point that the government and the Bush administration identifies, not to the standard, and this is the way they've been working, not to the standard you would need to prove in court, but to the satisfaction of the administration that they know who's responsible. They will not deal with this as a criminal matter first, but as a military one first, and retaliate against someone somewhere. Too early to say who. One of the things about bin Laden that is so misunderstood, and his name has come up a few times today, is how he actually operates. More so than launching these operations himself at his direction from his own organization. And there are instances where he's charged with doing exactly that. In many more of the cases, especially of operations they shut down, the U.S. government takes the position that he's basically a foundation, that any terrorist group can approach him and say, we want to go to work. He'll provide the training, the financing, and then send them off to do their work, essentially with grant money, seed money, training, logistical support. So it doesn't necessarily have to be him to have his fingerprints on it.
Fires are still burning in the Pentagon, no surprise there. As John McCreffy and Barbara Starr both reported for us, this building penetrated the outer ring of the Pentagon and set many offices on fire on a variety of levels, and there are about 6 or 7 stories. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stories anyway in the Pentagon today. In at least one section, they are alight. And as I said a couple of times, the Palestinian President Yasser Arafat, who's deeply engaged in a war now with the Israeli government, has also reacted very quickly to this today.